Hello, Wazobia Code developers. Welcome back to Wazobia Code. The last video introduced you to use effects. This video will introduce you to routing in React. So you have made multiple components in React and you want them to be on different pages. How do you make this happen? This is where routing comes in. Routing controls navigation in React applications. It controls how you can go from one web page to another web page in a React application. Let's go over to Replit and I'll show you how you can do React routing. Okay, so here we are in our famous Wazobia code practice REPL. And I've run the code and here we are. You're probably going to have a bunch of alerts. I took some time earlier to take care of all of them, but just keep clicking on OK until I go. And so what we're going to do now is that we're going to add some React routing. What do we need to do to add some React routing? Well, whenever you add routing to a React page, usually you have the routing functionality inside your app.jsx file. So your app.jsx file becomes your routing file. So we have content inside our app.jsx. Let's move all that content to a new component called home.jsx. So let's create that file. Okay, put an src. Okay, and then we're going to copy all of this. And then we're going to go to home.jsx. We're going to paste them and obviously change this from app to home, export default home. Okay, so we're good now. So now we're going to go into our app.jsx and we're literally going to delete every single thing we have in it. Everything we have inside our app function. Okay, and now we are going to start the routing. So in order to implement routing, you need to import something called router and routes from React. So let's import them. Import browser router. Okay, we usually do as this router, route, and route. So those are the three things we're going to import right now. And then now we can go ahead and we can start defining our routes. So we actually define our routes in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to return. We'll return its definition of routes. And the first thing we're going to have in here. Oh, I did forget to do something. From, so basically where are we importing it from? We're importing it from React router DOM. So we've imported it. Okay, good. So now we're back here. We're going to return our router. Okay, and inside our router, what are we going to have? Well, we're going to have our first route. And how do we determine our first route? Well, route. So our first route is going to be the route that the user sees when they first come into the page. So how you're going to do this is you're going to do route path this. So this means beginning of the page. Once the user enters the page, what they see. And now the components we want on this is the home. Then you close it. Okay, so one mistake I made is that this is home, lowercase home, and not big case home. Oh, and now we see is that, what is this error? Does this file exist? React router DOM. Let's copy this. Let's copy React Router DOM. Okay. And then we come over here. What is React Router DOM? Well, that is where we import from. That is the library import from. The library import from does not exist. How do we solve that? Well, this is a scenario where you need to import the library that doesn't exist. So what we're going to do is that we're going to open our terminal. Open our shell. And we're going to do npm install and then paste that. And then it's been installed. So let's go back to our page. App.jsx. Okay, now that we have installed our React Router DOM, let's go ahead and do the routing. So the first thing we want to do is router. Okay, the next thing we want is route. So define the route. Okay, so now inside here we're going to put each individual route. So we want the home page to be the home component we made. So we're going to have home route path is going to be this. Means that that should be the initial part. An element we want home. Okay, so we go over here and look, we can see the home page. Well, all of these alerts are pissing me off. I want to put the use effect comp in its own page so that it doesn't annoy me all the time. How do I do that? Well, it's easy, it's the same thing. So first we go to the home page, over here, we go to home, and then what we can do is that we can add a link, and this link will take you to the use effect component. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you add a link that takes you to the use effect component? Well, first we can take this, delete it from here, and then go over to our app.jsx and create a route to the use effect component. First thing we need to do is import it. Import use okay, so it's called use effect com from this dot slash use effect com. Okay, we import it and then we create a route path to it. So route path. So this could be anything you want the path to be. It could be anything you want. I want to call it effect. Okay, and then element equals to this. Okay, so there we go. We've created a route to it. So now we have to link that route in our home. We have to create a link to that route in our home page. So how do you do that? Well, this is how you do it. You do link to, what's it to? Well, our link is to effect. And then in here, we're going to put len effects. Okay. And then just go over here to make sure it's correct. Effect, make a route effect, use the use effect component. We go to home and then we put a link to effect. So we go to our page and then what we actually see. And don't forget to import link. We don't have link imported, so let's delete this and instead import link. So we're going to import link from, where are we importing it from? From React Router DOM. Okay, there we go. So let's go to the page. And then we see a link that says len effects. And when we click on it, we get all of these alerts. all these annoying alerts. And then we go to the effect page. So that is how you use routers to do routing in React. Okay, so you've learned how to do React routing. Let's add some routing to our recipe sharing app. Okay, so we are back at our recipe sharing app. And the goal is to add some basic routing to our recipe sharing app. So what type of routing are we looking for? Well, we want to create a home page and start it with CSS. And then the next thing we want to do is that we want to create a navigation bar that can take us to different parts of the pages. And also we want to create another, and now we want to make our JSON show data for multiple recipes as opposed to just one. So a good place to start would be with our JSON. So let's run this and have it shown on a new tab. Okay, and then expand this. That's the wrong screen to expand this. Okay, so a good place to start would be with our recipe data.json. We're going to increase that to include multiple recipes, and you can just copy the recipes that I have in the replit. So we're going to make this JSON this. So previously we had just one dictionary that was our recipes, but now we have a list of recipes that we can look at. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to create a home.jsx page. Let's do that. So add a file, home.jsx. Okay, and then let's go in there. So export default function. Okay, and then what do we want inside there? Well, one thing we want to do, let's return, okay. And then obviously we're returning a div. Let's give it a class name in case we want to style. Let's call it home container. Okay. Okay, good. So now, next thing we want to do is that we want to import the recipes, the entire recipe JSON. So import recipes from recipes.json. And then what we want to do is that we want to map through all those recipes and display every single recipe. So what we want to do is recipes.map. So we map them, grab each individual recipe, and then what are we going to do with them? Now we're going to create a div that's going to have each individual recipe, and that div is going to look something like this. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. That is what our home page is going to look like. So the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to create a recipe.home.css file to style the home. Let's call it home.css. Okay, and then let's import that here. Import home.css. Okay, so I already had the CSS file all written up, so I'm just going to copy and paste that. You can style this however you want, or you can come to the replit and then take the styles. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is that we want to make our recipe details load the detail of a recipe dynamically. Usually, our recipe details returns the detail of one recipe. Now we have a JSON of multiple recipes. We want our recipe detail to show the details of a specific recipe, and that should be the recipe that was selected on the home. So how is that going to work? So you come to the home, you see multiple recipes, and each of them is going to have a link to this recipe-recipe ID. where ID is the number the recipe is on the recipe list. And then we want our recipe details to be able to get that number that home passed into the URL, and then use that number to basically find what recipe in the recipe data JSON that we want to show. So to do that, we use a special hook called use params. But this is how you do that. So you do this ID equals to use use params. Okay, and then we have our recipe, set recipe, use state. Then we have our use effect. So what we want to do first is that we get the recipe ID equals to parse int, change it to an integer ID 10. So 10. So that's how you convert it to a number. Then you get the recipe details for that specific recipe. And then you set the recipe to the recipe details. And we want this to change every single time the ID changes. So we have our show recipe ingredients set should reproduce true. We have our div where we run the div titles, recipe the recipe title in the JSON. Let's see, in the JSON, what's it called? In the JSON now it's called just title. So we want to return recipe.title and not recipe titles. The next thing we're going to show is recipe.description, because in the JSON now it's just description. So recipe.description the next thing is going to be recipe.ingredients, and the last thing is going to be recipe.steps. Okay, that's how we solve that. And now we're going to create a navigation bar. And what this navigation bar is going to do is that it's going to have links that can take us back to the home page. So come over here, we're going to add a file called navigation bar.jsx. Okay, open this up. So basically the same thing that we've been doing before. We get link, we get navigation bar, give it a class name, get navigation bar CSS. Let's make the navigation bar CSS right now. Okay, this is navigation bar CSS. Paste in the styles. Now this is the interesting part. Now we have to go to the app to put everything together. So we go over to app.jsx. We import basically everything. So we import the browser router, we import home, we import recipe details, we import navigation bar. And then what we want to do technically is this. So we create our router, put a navigation bar on top of every single route, create our routes, and then do the recipe IDs. So when you go into the page, you're going to see okay, now remember our problem, React Router DOM does not exist. So this is one where we have to solve again by installing our React Router DOM. So we go to plus sign, we go to plus sign, scroll away till you find shell, the npmi. Okay, refresh the page. Let's see, our error says fail to resolve recipes.json. Let's see, recipes.json. Oh, we named it recipe data.json. Okay. And then one more thing we're missing is that we did not import link from React.DOM. So let's do that. Import link from React.DOM. Then we save. And then let's look. So jollof rice, view received. So we see so now we can see our page. This is the home. You click on view recipe. So now we can see a recipe for jollof rice. Click on toggle recipe ingredients. See the ingredients. Click on toggle recipe steps. See the steps. And these are all coming from the JSON, and we used React routing to enable us move around the page. Well, that is all we have for today. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section and they will be answered. Stay tuned to learn how to code with Wazobia Code.